I'm Sarah Kate Wilson, and this is my studio at Chisenhale Art Place, which is in Tower Hamlets.
Hi, my name's Davey, and Sarah and I are co-directors of artist collective LKL.
So we first met at the Slade School of Art in 2008, and we were studying our MFAs in painting there. My practice is very much this idea of what an expanded idea of what painting could be. So again, our practices they touch on each other sometimes, so we work a lot with collage and found material and the history of art and different materials like this, and mining the archive as well as a way of making paintings now. But this expanded idea of painting, I guess, is where I've stepped into. And yeah, when we were studying together at the Slade, it was quite a new direction, and it was actually really tricky to make work in that way on a very traditional. Well, no, it wasn't traditional painting course at all.
No.
But people's conceptions of what painting was often felt very
they're quite narrow.
Yeah, very restrictive, and there would be a lot of debate about my work as to this isn't a painting, and so that was quite a battle actually, and so after I left the Slade, I kind of put all my paints and canvases and brushes away and started to make work in a really, really different way. So the Slade was incredible for that because it kind of broke everything open and just let me kind of put my practice back together again, which is really what I wanted.
So when we left, alongside fellow artist and Slade graduate Claire Dorset, we didn't want to wait for a gallery to pick us up because it probably wouldn't happen. So we wanted to take our own future into our own hands, so we decided to form LKL to then put on projects ourselves and work with the artists we wanted to work with, kind of take on that ethos, that community kind of energy we had cultivated at the Slade, and then to take that on into the world. So
I think it's important to foreground what was going on in the climate at that time. 2008, we just had the economic crash, so we entered art school at the moment when galleries were closing. I'd previously worked in the art world, and so had Rose, so we both had that kind of gallery world experience, and it was suddenly the phone stopped ringing. It was really overnight. It was kind of amazing, and we went into art school at that time, so it was a really precarious moment to kind of 2 years later emerge, and in a way it was just this is kind of great. It's kind of like freedom at the same time as it being terrible.
I think it was a coping mechanism as well.
Yeah.
Like any artist will know, when you finish art school, it's a bit like a deer in the headlights. You're not quite sure what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to continue with this kind of group collective and know that we were going to make work, we were going to do things together because we were actually starting it ourselves.
Yeah. So our most recent curatorial project as LKL was called Show Off. And really it took as its premise this idea of artworks that could be choreographed on stage for a seated audience, and hence show off. So artworks basically come on and off a stage, and they're lit with theatrical lighting, and some objects and some works are accompanied by sound as well. So it's this idea of how can we ask an audience to come and sit but look at a painting differently to how they might look at it in a white gallery space. How can they look at a sculpture that's been assembled on stage in front of their eyes rather than just meeting the artwork finished? So we're really trying to perform the works, but also take the fear away from the audience, who really they got to sit back and the works came to them. So it was trying to flip the normal gallery setup.
And I think, kind of funnily enough, the artists were very nervous. They were much more nervous, obviously, than the audience, because I think sometimes, for a lot of people, going into a white cube space has been quite intimidating, especially certain galleries, often commercial galleries. You kind of enter and there's somebody just below a desk. And you only hear your own footsteps on a polished concrete floor, and you're also so self-conscious. You're like, should I look at this for 10 seconds, 20 seconds? Can I touch it? Do I move kind of chronologically or from left to right? And so that took all of that fear away, because the audience just had to sit there, and as Sarah says, the artworks came to them, and they were presented on this stage that was designed by Gary Woodley, and it was comprised of I can't remember how many separate pieces, but it was basically 16 metre square blocks. And the stage maybe moved kind of not quite for each artwork, but almost. And it can be configured to a catwalk, to a flat platform, to a pyramid, to a screen. So things can be projected upon it. And that was really an artwork that, if you like, was on stage the whole time.
Yeah.
And also the big feedback we got after the first night, because it was performed for 3 nights, was that the paintings weren't seen for long enough. So I think the average somebody looks at a painting is about 8 seconds, 7 to 8 seconds, and we had people come on and hold paintings for 20 seconds, and we were told to double it because they were off too quick. So we had paintings there for 40 seconds with the audience just looking at them, which is kind of really rare. I mean, we wanted to get away from that situation in private views when people are just there, maybe their backs to the wall, drinking wine, which, I mean, we all do it, talking to each other, and the art's just the environment, it's the context, it's not the focus, and Show Off made that impossible. You had to see the work.
But this Show Off, came off the back of another project that we did, because Rose and I are both painters, and so we wanted to think about this idea of painting and where it's shown. And we looked at this statistic, I think it was the Tate that put it out, that said a painting spends 80% of his life in storage. And we know that, you know, many works not sold in storage, many works sold end up in storage. So this idea that there's this vast amount of works that just live in archives, they're never seen. So we basically put out a call to 30 painters to basically unwrap a painting from storage, get it out of the bubble wrap, and find a way to carry it in some format, some form or another. And we made a painting parade. So basically we met at Tate Modern with all these artists that had brought their painting out of storage, and we walked for about an hour and a half through central London, from Tate Modern up to Green Park.
So I basically wore 2 of my paintings as a sandwich board. Yeah. And I think because people recognise that as a thing in the world, they kind of were like, what are you doing?
What are you advertising?
What are you advertising? I was like, myself and my work. As Sarah was saying, it was a way to just get things out of the studio, talk to other artists, meet people, have ideas, and then this kind of thing of carrying your work, dragging your work, wearing your work, pushing your work, making work as you go, then led us to come to Show Off.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how artists of our generation, who've had that financial crash we talked about in 2008 and now have had Brexit, where we're all going to be in 10 years' time, I think is really, really interesting. And I was saying this to my students at Camberwell, you know, who are like 19. I was saying, you know, this is your moment. Like, what do you want to make work about? You know, you get to really talk about these things. And I think I'm really always kind of engaging with that and pushing that forward, whereas maybe you're more the art history and kind of what politics they were grappling with and trying to show students through those histories, whereas I'm kind of thinking like, what's going on right now? What are you going to make work about? How are you going to make yourself heard? You know, and the fact female artists are now, you know, so much more collected and support behind female artists is growing and growing and growing. That was not the case when we were doing our BAs in 2002. So, I mean, just in our short span of practice, really, huge things have happened. It's quite curious times that we're living in.
And time away from the studio is a really good thing. And someone did suggest to me that I should put having a baby on my CV, which I think is a really good point. Because the amount of skills that I have gained through having a child, which I can now actually use in the world, is priceless. And numerous women have said to me that they're actually much more efficient at their job after having a baby and going back in.
Well, I think it's management. Like, I was thinking about transferable skills and thinking, you know, after you do have children, you know, you've learned to kind of coordinate so much stuff.
I mean, look at these guns. Did not have these before having a baby.
Lifting.
I'm stronger.
But I think it's just really important that we talk about this with students, because it wasn't talked about when we were at art school. Women didn't talk about how, you know, they weren't selling work, or their husbands were selling work but they weren't selling work, or the fact they'd had 4 kids. Rose Wiley is a really amazing example, and so is Villa de Barlo, of people who've had children who've just kept their practice going, because it's not about selling work, it's about making work and showing it and having conversations about it, you know. So I think it's just keeping going and remembering that your networks, you know, whether they started when you were 15 at school or in your MA in your 30s or wherever, you know, it's so important to keep those conversations going, because otherwise what's the point, you know. You've got to talk about it and keep going, because it's really hard.